Thank you for joining this Apps Events webinar. In this session, we'll talk about how you can bring the world to your classroom and how your students can bring the world to your classroom using imaginative storytelling with Google Earth projects and Google VR Tour Creator. These two Google Geo Tools are very user-friendly, and even younger students can easily learn how to tell their stories. But first, a little pedagogy. What exactly is digital storytelling? Well, technically, it's using computer-based tools to tell stories, but don't get hung up on stories in the literal sense. Things like climate change or scientific experiments, places like World Heritage Sites, they all really do have a story to tell, so you can get creative. We sometimes refer to digital stories as documentaries and narratives, maybe digital essays, electronic memoirs. Really, anything that can be turned into a story can be told digitally. And of course, the idea is to combine the art or the craft of telling a great story by using a variety of multimedia, including video and audio, 2D images, 360-degree imagery, whether you've taken your own 360 photos or you use 360 imagery from Google Street View. If you're on a Chromebook and use Chromebooks at school, not a problem. This stuff can be done in the cloud. So what do students get out of it? Basically, they're getting this authentic audience. They're using their voice to speak to people about things that they're passionate about and things they're interested in. When they collaborate, they can work together and develop collaborative skills, or they can work independently. When kids get a chance to tell their own stories, their motivation is really high. And when they have a good finished product, their confidence is built. And again, most importantly, perhaps, is that authentic audience. They're not just creating things for the teacher or for their parents, but for a real-world audience. And of course, they develop a lot of skills, research and analysis and citation. They learn to communicate with the written word as well as orally. They learn to plan an investigation. They learn to plan how to tell a story. They're being creative. They're using their imagination. And as they're using tools maybe that they haven't used before, or if they're trying to find information that's difficult to find, they're solving problems. And ideally, as they tell stories, they're developing empathy, trying to put themselves in the place of other people, or put themselves in places they've never been to. So, what makes a really great story? Well, the first thing you should be thinking about is the audience, because after all, it's the audience that decides if a story is great or not. So you have to find ways to connect with your audience. The topic certainly matters. What do people want to learn about? What do they want to see? What do they want to hear about? How can the audience be engaged? How can you immerse them in your story? Imagery is very important. Think about photos and videos, photos with clever angles and good lighting. How can the photos help to tell the story further? And the words, of course, are very important. How can you write in a way that captures the imagination of the audience? How can you make them feel like they're there? How can you get them to be emotional and how to respond to the story and to the photos and the videos that you put in your stories? So here are some best practices to think about as you guide your students in their journey of excellent storytelling. You want to encourage equity and honesty. So use broad topics if you can, like conflict and climate change. You want to avoid stereotypes. So if you're using places around the world, for example, that have conflict, don't focus on one region of the world. Focus on the whole world so that students learn that conflict is a human condition and not really isolated to one part of the world. Think of the audience and the purpose of any project or tour or story that the students are going to tell. If it's text heavy, it might be good for group work or for older students. And if you use minimal text, it's probably good for individual or younger students. Individual work, that is, and younger students. Do your research first. If you do your research first, it kind of makes the production of any Google Earth project or VR Tour Creator tour go a little more quickly. Make sure you have students always record their citations, any kind of credit they have to give. We want to encourage academic honesty, and we as educators have to do that as well. So if you're a teacher and you're building a tour, put your citations in there so students see that you're academically honest as well. I recommend you have your text, images, videos, any kind of audio files, whatever you're going to use, have it ready so that when you build your product, it's going to go faster. And of course, be consistent. Make sure color schemes, make sure text sizes and fonts and things like that are all the same. It looks more professional, it looks more polished, and it's more enjoyable for the viewer to look at. So some of you might be thinking, what kind of equipment do I need? Well, not a lot. In terms of devices, Chromebooks are really great because they work in the cloud, fabulous, especially for Google Earth projects. But any other devices that have a browser, such as your Mac or whatever you might be using. As long as you can use a browser, you're good to go. Microphones, you might want to think about this, especially if you use VR Tour Creator and create narration for your tours. And really, simple earbuds that have a microphone that you might use with your computer or your smartphone, they're just fine. Now, there's free audio software out there for recording. So tools like Chrome Web Store extensions. Go to the Chrome Web Store, find a voice recording extension, or Vocaroo or online voice recorder. GarageBand, Audacity, QuickTime, things like that, they work just as well. Now, if you're doing some video recording for your Earth projects, or you want to put links in your Google VR Tour Creator, Chrome extensions like Screencastify or Loom are very good. Again, maybe QuickTime. If you really want to get serious and get yourself a 360-degree camera, there are several good ones. Towards the end of this, I do a little brief introduction of the Ricoh Theta, which I use to take my 360-degree photos and videos. And on the topic of photos, maybe get a nice DSLR digital camera if you're taking photos of your community for a tour or something like that. We'll begin with Google Earth projects. If you want to see more examples, you can go to socialstudiessamurai.com, click on EdTech in Class, choose Google Earth Stories and Tours, and then choose one that you might want to look at. We're going to have a look at modern technology or ancient ideas. Now, this is a nice example of a story that doesn't have a narrative, but it does tell the human story, because we're looking at technology from the ancient world. So it does kind of tell the human story. Whereas something like the story of Halloween or Christmas or St. Valentine's Day, that has a chronology where you would want to look at the story, one place to the next place to the next place. So when you first launch Google Earth, you are going to have to wait for it to load. Now you can see here, the way I've set this one up is that I have a full image. This is a full screen slide that gives the title of the story, and it also gives a little bit of background context within the text that I put here. And note that I've added my image source as well as works cited for this particular image right here. So there's different ways to view. Now, in this case, it's not chronological, so I could really just click on any different place and then go from one place to another without worrying about the story. This might be used, for example, with a jigsaw activity where one student has to learn about one thing, another student learns about another, and then they come back together in a group and teach each other. If you had a chronology or a chronological story, like the story of Halloween, for example, you might want to use the arrows right down here where you go from one place to the next. So let's check out our first place. So our first place takes us to Baghdad, Iraq, and we're looking at drugstores in the ancient Arab world. You notice that I put an image in here. You can also put in videos and things like that, which we'll show you in a moment. And here I've got my knowledge card. It looks very clean. There's two different kinds you have. We'll show you the different kinds. There's a small white pop-up box or this dark one, which I prefer. And you notice I can link my text to my image source in particular in this case. And you can put other text here as well. So I could click my arrow and move on to the next one chronologically, or I can choose whatever topic interests me next. I think ancient brain surgery is kind of cool. So let's click on that and see where that's happening. So you can see now it's pulling out, and I'm zooming over into the island of England, well, the country of England on the British Isles. And again, I've got my knowledge card here, or my info card, whatever you prefer to call it, as well as linked text. And here you notice I've got these arrows on either side, right? So I've got my image of the trepanated skull, and if I click, I could go through a series of images, but you notice here, this is actually a YouTube video. Now you can only link YouTube, and we'll teach you how to do that. But if I tap on it, now I get this pop-up with the YouTube video. Let's turn the volume down a bit. And all you have to do is play it. And so this gives a little bit more of the multimedia feel, a little richer in terms of the story that you want to tell. It gives further learning to the viewer. Just have to click my X up here to get out of it. And then I can choose my next place to go. Let's see. Chewing gum's kind of cool. And again, it's going to zoom out so we can see the globe, and it's going to take us to another part of the world. In this case, we're going to Mexico. Now, in this St. Valentine's Day project or tour or story, if you prefer, have a look at what happens when we click on this pilgrimage to Santa Maria. So we're zooming up from the last place I was looking at in Google Earth. Google Earth remembers wherever you go from one place to another. And note how it's taking me right into this church, which is really pretty cool. I deliberately did this when I was setting this project up. So now the person can look at this, the inside of this church that I want them to see in this particular story. It's a pretty cool feature, and we'll teach you how to do that. And finally, towards the end of this segment of the webinar on Google Earth projects, I'm going to show you how you can embed third-party apps like Answer Garden, Padlet, and other tools like that. Sometimes they don't function very well within Google Earth projects. You have to get the HTML down properly. But I do like to put a quiz at the end of some of my projects. And the way I get around functionality is simply taking the exact same image I put at the beginning of my project, and I put it at the end. And then I give it a title, short quiz, and then I link the text. Try this quiz to see what you've learned. And when they tap on it, it simply opens up a Google form, and then they can take the quiz that way. And of course, I can collect the results and grade that for my students. Now, when you're logged into your Gmail account, there are different ways you can access Google Earth. You can simply type earth.google.com in your Omnibox at the top. And when you get this page, you go up to the blue button in the top right and click Launch Earth. Wait for it to load, and then you can get started. And one way to access Earth as part of your G Suite for Education account, when you're logged in, you can go to your apps launcher, click on that, scroll down, find the Google Earth icon, tap on that, wait for it to load, and then you can get started. Now, the first bit of advice I'm going to give you is that before you build your tour, create a Google Doc, get all of your text written, get all of the links to images and videos that you might use, and your works cited, because we want a works cited to show academic honesty. Because when you go to build your project, it's going to go much faster. So once you've opened Google Earth, you're going to go over to the left here, and you're going to click on the Projects tool. Now, at the top, you see New Project, the blue button, so you're going to tap on that. Now, Google Earth makes a folder in Google Drive for you called Earth, and that's where all your projects go. You can move those around later if you want, not a problem. So click Create Project in Google Drive. Now, one thing you want to do is first give it a title. Now, this title is not seen by people. So this is an untitled project, so I'm going to tap in there and give it my title. And I'm going to call this the demo version. And you want to put a description in. This is actually just for you. Nobody is going to see that. Okay, that closed on me, so I'm going to hit the edit button again and just paste that in there. Again, nobody sees this but you. It's just to remind you of what your project is about. Now, while I have you here, at the top, there's the share icon. So if you click on that, then you can share with other people in your domain. And that's a nice feature about projects is you can have a whole class working on a project. So you could take a whole pile of places around the world with one theme or topic and work on it together or in small groups. Now, if you don't like your project, you can always hit the trash can and delete it that way or drag and drop it into the trash can from Google Drive. We'll show you how to do that later. Now, the ellipse at the top is where you can copy a project or you can export it for other people to make a copy of. So now that we're set up, let's add some content. So now what we want to do is add content. So we're going to go down to where it says New Feature. And if you tap on that, you have options. You can search for a place that you're going to add, which will put a pin somewhere, in a place on the earth. You can add a place mark if you know exactly where you want it to go, or you can draw a line or a shape. What I recommend is starting with a full screen slide. So tap on that, and each place that you add will give you this bar here. You're probably not going to manually enter information, but if you're really keen, go for it. Also note that they have tutorial videos that you can watch to kind of help you build your project, but I'm teaching you how to do this now. So what I want to do is go back to my document where I have all my text pre-researched. I'm going to get the title, and I'm going to give my slide a title. And I'm going to go back to my description. And I'm going to go right down to even where it says image credit. And I'm simply going to paste it right in here. And so I'm going to scroll down, and it looks like I've got some decent spacing going on here. And I want to put an image in. Now, if I want, I could just have a color for my background. So for example, if I tap blue, and I go up here to View Presentation, which you can do anytime you're building something, you're going to see this, right? So there's a little bit too much space in here. I don't like that. So I'm going to go to my arrow in the top left, and that's going to go back and allow me to edit. And I don't really want to use that blue. I want something a little more catchy. So what I've done is chosen this image. And so I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to tap and copy the link. And instead of the color, I'm going to add an image. Now, you can do an image search. For example, Tutankhamun. You can look for a YouTube video that'll pop up. Let's go to return. You can find something you have in Google Drive. You can search through your photos or URL. And since I've done my research, I'm going to go with the URL that I want. And I click on that. I'm going to wait for it to load here or to populate. And so now I'm going to go back to preview presentation. So I tap on that. And that looks pretty good. Actually, what I want to do is link where I got my image from. Now note that you're only going to have white text here, so you want a dark background for a title slide or a full screen slide. So again, I'm going to go back, and what I want to do is simply highlight this text that says National Geographic. I'm going to go here where I have my link icon, and where it says URL, I'm going to post it or paste it in there and click OK. And if I want, I could bold some of the words and that kind of thing. I'm not going to do that now. Let's just check the presentation. And now I've got an active link where people can go and see the photo for themselves. Let me go back. And now I want to add more content. So in order to do that, I have to go to my arrow right up here and click back. Now let me point out that if I want, I can edit or I can delete this image if it doesn't work for me. So let's go back. And so now you can see that I've got my, my first slide, my first thing that people see when they go to my tour. Now I can click edit or I can delete it, And I can actually click the little eyeball there so that people can't see it. But I don't want to hide it. I want people to see it. So now I'm going to add a new feature. And this time, I'm going to search for a place to add. So I click search for place to add. And I'm going to go back up and scroll down to my very first place. And so I want to go to Memphis, Egypt. Now this whole text here is going to be my slide or my place title. So I'm only going to copy the location. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to paste it in there. Now I don't want Memphis, Tennessee. I want Memphis in Egypt. So this is the one that I want. It said historical place in Egypt. And now I get this knowledge card here. That's what these are called, knowledge cards. And I want to choose add to project. So I'm going to click add to project. And now I'm going to put my place title here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy everything. And I've got my date in there as well. I'm going to highlight that. And I'm not going to save it. I'm going to click edit place. So I click edit place. All right, so what I want to do is click on replace. And so now I have all my things that I can edit again. So I'm going to go back to my text. And I've got a whole whopping lot of text here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back. And I think maybe this is possibly too much text. You know, think to yourself, are people going to read this whole thing? Think about what your purpose is and who your audience is. Now I'm going to kind of change my line spacing here just a little bit. And I noticed that I don't have my image credits. I haven't put an image in yet. So let's go back. And I didn't include my works cited as well. So let's actually put my works cited in there. This is a big project. So I've got a lot of different sources that I used for it. So I'm just going to see that my line spacing is okay. Yeah, I think we're all right. I'm going to leave a little space there so I can do my image citation. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to take one image. And what I'll do is actually copy the Creative Commons citation and I'm going to put it in there. And that's automatically bolded. So I'm going to unbold that. And I'm going to type in image sources. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy the link to that image. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do two things. The first thing is I'm going to highlight this source. I'm going to put my link in here, get rid of that last link, paste the URL right there. And now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go back to my URL. But remember, there's different ways you can access images. You can even upload your own. But that's the one that I like the most. I'm going to tap that, and I'm going to wait for it to populate. I'm not finished, though. I also want to put in a video. Now, you can put in quite a number of images in here. But now I want to put video source. And maybe give a little more space there. And I'm going to go down, and here's a YouTube video that I chose. So I'm just going to tap my link that I pasted. I'm going to copy the link. And up here, I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm simply going to paste, and search. And there it is, Rosetta Stone, the stone that unlocked ancient Egypt's secrets. I'll click select. And I'm just going to put the title. I'm going to highlight that as well. And I'm going to put the link in there. You don't really have to do this, but I like to have all my sources in there. Maybe somebody wants to click on that link and see the video on their own. Now, let me click Preview Presentation. I'll show you how this looks. So now I have this white knowledge card. But you know, I don't really like the white. Now, it's good that I've got a little bit of space between things, not too bad. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my info box. I'm going to go from small info box to large info box. And now look what happens. So I preview, and now it's black. And you can see here I can scroll to look at my images and videos, which I only put 2 in there. And I scroll down, and it looks pretty good. Maybe I'll add one more space in between the text and the images. I put a space down here just because I didn't want that squished and scrunched up. And I think I'm ready to add my new place. So I go back up to my arrow and I choose new feature. And you can see now I've got a full title slide and I've got a pin, which means there's a place to go to. I'm going to click new feature. And in this case, I'm going to search for a place to add. So let me add that and then I'll show you a few more tricks. So now I have my second place marker, but this bird's eye view I don't really like too much. It's not so attractive. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I can hit my plus button, or if I want, I can just kind of zoom in a little bit like this, and I'm going to try to find a more interesting place. Like maybe, for example, this area of Pompeii City, or maybe the amphitheater. So I'm going to go down here where you see Pegman. That's what this little character is called. I'm going to drag that, and I'm going to place it in an area that might be a little more engaging to look at. Watch what happens. This is really neat. So what happens is now it's going to drag us down like we're soaring like a bird. And now we're inside the amphitheater. And this is the Google Street View imagery that we're looking at here. I think that's kind of neat. I might want to spend time looking for a little bit more of an engaging place. I like this view because there's not a lot of people in there. So I'm going to click Capture This View. And if I click on Capture This View, that means when people look at this presentation, instead of going directly to the bird's eye view, they're going to go here, right into the amphitheater, which is way cool. So if I want to kind of see how things look a little bit, I can, for example, tap on Unlocking Ancient Egypt, and it's going to pull me out. I'm zooming out, and it's going to go from Italy to Egypt. So now I'm going to add a new feature. I think I'm going to draw a line or a shape. Let me just show you how this works. If I tap Draw a Line or a Shape, I can actually select specific points just by tapping. Now this might be good if you want to do a little bit of geometry or something like that. Now this is going to be the same place in Egypt that we went to. So we're going to go back to Memphis. And I'm just going to change the name like I did everything else. I'm going to click Edit Place. And now I can add images, I can add text, I can change the info box. Let me just write the word text in there. Make it a large info box. Maybe I'm not going to put an image in there. Let's just go back to see what that looks like. So now you can see that in my editing panel, now I've got this other little place. So I've gone from Italy, and if I click on Memphis again, I'm going way back to Egypt, and it's focusing me on that one small little place. And maybe that could be something like a speculation. What do you think this land was used for? Well, it looks kind of flat. Maybe it's used for agriculture or something like that. And you can highlight urban areas and things like that. Maybe roads and aqueducts and things like that. Of course, you'd want more text here on the side and that kind of thing. Now let me show you one more cool little feature. Now, one other cool feature is that you can embed HTML, such as third-party apps. In this case, we're going to use Answer Garden. I want students to interact with this a little bit. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to add a new feature, but this time I'll go with a full screen slide. So I tap on that, and I'm not going to add any images or anything like that. What I'm going to do is go right up here first. I'm going to put a title. What do you know? Or what else do you know? And then I'm going to go here to my ellipse. It gives you more stuff to do. And I'm going to switch to HTML. Okay? And then I'm going to go back to the third-party app. This could be Answer Garden. It could be Padlet. It could be maybe even a Google form. And I'm going to scroll down here to Share. And I'm going to get the embed code. This is a little bit more for advanced users. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go back. And right here in the body, I'm going to paste it. Now I'm going to view my presentation, see how it looks. And I see that it's just a square right here. I want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click my back arrow. And I'm going to look at the height and the width. You can see that there, the width and the height. So didn't look very high, so to speak. I'm going to make that 800. I'm going to make it much wider. I'm going to see what happens when it's 1200. Let's click View Presentation. And that looks a lot better. Maybe I can make it even a little bit wider. Maybe if I go from 1200 to 1400, let's see what that looks like. And that covers most of my page. And what that means is students can answer or add their own ideas, which eventually will appear right here as they do their tour, which is kind of cool. It adds interactivity to your work. So let's say embedding a third-party tool or a quiz doesn't work for you. Well, that's simple. You can just create a full screen slide and add a link. So go to New Feature again, choose Full Screen Slide, and what you'll do is simply add a title, such as Short Quiz, and I'm going to go back and grab my text here. Probably could have typed that out. I'm going to give my background the image actually from the very beginning. So I'm going to go back to my cover image here. This is the first one that we used. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go to my background here again. And I'm going to add the image URL. Remember, you can upload images or you can find images in other ways. This has been automatically bolded for me. Sometimes that happens, but I'm going to leave it at that actually. And then I'm going to go to the Google form that I created. So this is the view form that I want them to use. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm just going to highlight the words, this quiz. And again, go to my add link button. And I'm going to add the URL. And if I wanted to, by the way, I could add links to other parts of this tour, but I'm not going to do that. I want them to go to the form. And let me see how that looks. So I'll go to View Presentation again. And there we go. I mouse over, it's an active link, and I'm good to go. So if you're finished with your Google Earth project, or not quite finished, and you want to find it, simply go to your apps launcher, click on Google Drive, and find the folder that says Google Earth. Tap on that, and then you're going to see all of your Google Earth projects. And you can put other things in here too. That's not a problem. So that was your crash course in Google Earth Stories and Tours. Notice how I used Google Docs and I worked completely from the cloud. So if you're a school that uses Chromebooks, or if you prefer to use a Chromebook, you can do all of this in the cloud simply from your Chromebook. And you don't have to worry about using up space in your desktop, etc. So in the next segment, we're going to look at virtual reality. So again, if you want to go to socialstudiessamurai.com, click on the Tech in Class and go down to Augmented and Virtual Reality. In the future, you'll see some examples of tours that you can do, but I'm going to teach you how to build a Google VR Tour Creator tour in the next segment. So in this part of the webinar, we're going to teach you how you can build a 360-degree tour that gives you pop-up images and text where students can learn about different places in the world with multiple scenes that have pop-up images, pop-up text, and in some cases, audio. Now, in this case, we do have to turn the audio on. We'll teach you how to do that. So, when you go to a Shinto shrine, you walk underneath a torii gate. You walk on. We'll teach you how to make this, how to publish it to the web, how to share it with your students. Very cool tool. Google VR Tour Creator. To access VR Tour Creator, the first thing you need to know is that you do have to be logged into your Google account, but Tour Creator is not part of the G Suite for Education suite of apps, so you will not find it here in your apps launcher. So what do? Log into your account, then open a new tab, and the fastest way is to type Google VR Tour Creator. And it will come up at the top of your search. Click on that link. And before we get started, first of all, keep in mind that with Tour Creator, students cannot collaborate with each other. So you cannot have 2 or more students working on the same tour together. Bit of a bummer. But one thing that's really cool is that you can take your tour once it's created and turn it into a Google Expedition where students can view and lead and guide a 360-degree tour using VR headsets with the Google Expeditions app. So when you're ready to create your tour, click on Get Started. Now, if you haven't made a tour before, you're not going to see anything in here. What I do encourage you to do is have a look at the templates. There is a template gallery largely focused on culture, social studies, history, and areas of science. You can actually make copies of these tours, and then you can change the text to suit your learning needs. I do encourage you to take a look at the template gallery. As I said, it's got things based on science and geography and history and culture. And if you look around, you can see some different ideas for the kinds of tours that you may want to make, or even your students. So for example, you or your students could download one of these tours. Let's say Petra, for example. So all I had to do is click on it, and it's going to make a copy automatically of the tour for me. So I have my copy of the tour. I can look at the different scenes that are in here. I can scroll around and think, are there different places I want my students to check out within each specific scene? And if I feel that the text is too difficult, all I have to do is highlight and change the text. I can delete any of the hotspots simply by going to the snowman or the ellipse that you see on the right side. I can move them around if I want. And if I want to add extra images or audio narration, I can do that as well. So this is a really great tool to allow students to take something that's been produced, change it a little bit, and make it their own. Once you've created your copy of the tour, if you go back to your landing page, you're going to see here that you've got a draft. So you can either delete that tour or tap on it, make your changes, and when you're ready, click Publish. However, this section of the webinar is about you building your own tour, so I would like you to click on New Tour and wait for it to load. Now, before you begin building your tour, what I do recommend is that you have all of your text ready. You can have descriptions, you can have points of interest, you can have narration, you can have credits. Have all of your text ready so that when you go to build your tour, it's going to go really, really quickly. Now, there's another thing. Your cover photo here, you have to have your images downloaded. You cannot connect URL images in Tour Creator like you could with, for example, Google Earth projects or Google Slides or Docs and that kind of thing. So if you use images from the internet, you do have to download them. And remember, keep an eye on the credit. You know, you want to give credit and be academically honest. Now, what I also do is make sure I've got all of my images that I'm going to be using, any 360 photos and 2D photos ready to go so that I know exactly where the images I want to use so that building my tour goes really, really quickly. So let's begin building our tour. Okay, now since I have my text ready, I'm just going to go back to my text and I'm going to get my title and paste it in there. I'm going to go back to my description. Now your description can be fairly long, but you're going to be limited in character count for the other parts of text that you can enter. Now my cover photo, I'm going to choose an image. You can either drag or drop an image, or you can select an image. So I'm not actually going to select because I've got my image folder open, and I'm going to just simply drag and drop my image in there. Now I think that's going to look okay. If I don't like it, I can just click Delete Cover Photo and find another one that I may like. I do like this one, so I'm going to stick it in there. And then I go down to the Create button at the bottom right and click Create. Now this is the screen you're going to get for every new scene that you add. Now this is the place that I want to go. So if you do not have a 360 image of your own to upload, you can tap on that, and then you can scroll around and have a look. And if that's the scene that you like, then all you do is go down to Add Scene and click. But I have a 360 photo that I like, so I'm going to click Upload. And I'm going to go back into where my folders with my images are, and I'm going to choose the image that I want to use. And I think this is the one. So I'm just going to click and drag that in. It looks a little bit weird right here, but that's okay. I'll click Add Scene. And here we go. Now I can drag it around and kind of have a look. Yep, I think that looks pretty good. I want people to see these rocks here, these white quartz stones. So I'm going to go here to Set Starting View and drag that just to where I want people to see. And I'll click Save. And now this is the view that people will see at first. There's a little mystery here, and that's why I have that. Now, I want to see what this kind of looks like. So I think what I'll do is go to my back home arrow and tap on that. And then I'm going to tap. And now I can see what that landing page image looks like. I'm going to just change my category to history. That way when people search, they're going to find it a little more easily, right? Now, I think that's kind of cool. I like it, so I'm not going to change my image. If I don't like it, again, I just have to delete my cover photo and upload it again. So I'm going to go back to my untitled scene. And now I'm going to start building what this looks like. So what I want to do is go up here and start changing this information and adding points of interest. So now what I want to do is fill in this information here, my scene title, where it is, credits and all that, the description. So I go back, and since I have all of my information here, I just really have to copy, paste it in, go back, copy the location, I'm going to paste it there, and I've got my description here, so I'm going to copy that text. And I do want to point out the description, if you notice here, it only allows up to 500 characters, not words, characters. So you're kind of forced to keep it short. And of course, I want to grab the credits. So I'm going to put credits right there, Social Studies Samurai. So now I've got my description. I'm not going to publish anything yet. I want to build it first. Now, if I want, I could add some ambient audio, or I could add some scene narration. That would be an MP3. We'll show you how to do that in a moment. First thing I want to do is add a point of interest. So I'm going to go back, and let's see. My first one is excavations. So I'm going to copy that title and come back here, and you can see down in the bottom it says Add Point of Interest. So I'm going to tap on that, and I can take this and put it pretty much anywhere I want. I think I'll put it right up here where it's going to be easy to see. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to give it a title, Excavations. I'm going to go back, I'm going to copy my text, and keep in mind, while the description allows 500 characters, points of interest only give you 300. So you have to keep that in mind. Now with this point of interest, I want to make a photo here. Now you could add audio. For me, I'm going to put a photo in. So I'm going to click this little photo icon that you see down there. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to grab not a 360-degree image, but a 2D photo. 360 images will not work. So I'm going to go back, and I want to think a little bit about excavating. So I'm going to grab an image that looks a little bit like there's been excavation going on. So I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to drag that and drop it in. And I'm going to click Add. Now note that you can put in JPEGs or PNG files. And what's going to happen is that's going to pop up when people tap on this point of interest. Just like that. And I will tap out. And people can see that this is an image because it's got the image icon. So they know that there's a picture there if they tap on it. I'm going to add a second point of interest. Same process. I'm going to copy the title of that point of interest, Myth About the Burial Mound. And I'm going to go back down and tap Add Point of Interest. In fact, what I'm going to do is first scroll to where I want it. And here's a trick I'm going to teach you. This is me right here. I don't really want people to see me as much as possible. I don't want people to see me. So I'm going to tap Add Point of Interest. I'm going to kind of cover myself a little bit. Maybe actually cover my really white legs. And give my point of interest a title. And Myth About the Burial Mound. Sometimes I think titles in the form of questions are nice. How do archaeologists excavate? What is the myth about Shiratorizuka? So I think I'll go back and change that later. For now, I'm going to go and I'm going to grab the text and I'm going to paste it in. And I think what I'll do is add another image because the image tells a little bit more of the story. And I'm going to find an image that has those white quartz stones. This one looks pretty cool, so I'm going to drag and drop that image in, and then I'll click Add again. And the same idea, when that's clicked on, there will be a pop-up. Now, I want to add one more point of interest, so let's go to a place that doesn't have a point. And in this one, I want to add audio. I want to tell a little bit more about the myth of this burial mound. So I'm going to add a title. So I go back to my text. And here it's got more about the myth. I might want to change that title a little bit later. And just a little explanation that you can learn more about this burial mound by using the audio. Now the thing is, I want to add an audio file. So here I've got my point of interest marker, but I want to make it audio. So I'm going to record straight from my browser. Now you could use GarageBand or Audacity, perhaps QuickTime, whatever you want, but I'm going to go with an online voice recorder. I recommend you use earbuds with a microphone or some kind of microphone just to get that better sounding audio. I'm going to go with online voice recorder. It's very simple. Vocaroo is another one that's very simple. And all I had to do is tap here and tell the story. So the legend has it that Yamato Takeru, so now I've stopped my audio recording. All I have to do is, I can listen to it. I can chop it down just a little bit with my editing here. And I click Save. And now I'm going to get my file here. So now I can save the file. Give it a name I'll remember. I click Save. Now I recommend that you do this before you build your tour. Just like all the other files, get your photos, get your text, and get your audio ready before. Now I've downloaded that, so all I had to do is click Close. And now what I want to do is here in my point of interest, I'm going to click on this person speaking icon. So I tap on that and it says to select an audio file, or I can just drag it and drop it. Now keep in mind, it must be an MP3, MP3 only. So I click select audio file. I'm going to go down to the file that I just made. There it is, Takeru's story. I'm going to click open and I'm going to wait for that to load. If I want, I can play it and give it a listen, and then I just click Add. So now, when I publish this tour, people can click on that and they can listen to it as well. They can click on the hotspot or they can click on the play button. And I can click and listen to it just to see how it sounds. So the legend has it that, okay, that's simply how it works. Now I'm going to finish building this tour so you can see what a whole tour looks like, and we're almost ready to publish. Okay, so now I want to add more scenes to my tour. So I simply just go to the bottom where it says Add Scene, and I'll click on that. And I'm going to search for a place if I want, or I can upload my own image. Now, if you look kind of closely here, this 360 image is actually one that I made and uploaded to Google Maps. So I'm going to choose this because it is my scene. So again, I just go down to Add Scene. And I'm going to choose my starting point. I don't like that starting view. I think this one is far more interesting. So I click Set Starting View. Let's pull that back right to where I want. Click Save. And now that's my starting view. And so now I'm going to start adding my information and then adding more scenes. Let's see what it looks like when I'm finished. Now, if there's a point of interest that I don't like or I've made a mistake, then all I have to do is actually tap my ellipses right here and delete point of interest. You can also move things up and down if you choose. So it looks like I've got two things in there, so I'm going to delete one of them. Let's say I've added a scene I do not like. All I had to do is tap on that particular scene, like this one right here, and then just click the trash can and hit delete. So now I'm just going to double check my scenes. I can tap at the bottom, scroll around. If there's something I don't like a placing, all I have to do is kind of move it around a little bit and see now that that's been placed a little bit lower. Even if the picture pops up, you can still drag it around. And if I look at everything and it's good, I'm going to go up here to my Publish button. And I'm going to click Publish to Poly. I can change my view setting if I want it unlisted, so only I give a link to my students so only they can see it, or I can choose public. I'm going to keep this public. I'm going to click Publish. So now I can click Done, or if I want, I can copy the link. I can view the tour, so let's do that. So now I can see kind of how my tour is going to look. Notice here it says scene 1 of 4, so that tells the viewer that there are more scenes. It's automatically going to do a little bit of a scroll for you here. So I'm just going to click on my pop-ups, and now I get my information on the left side. And here I can either scroll around or I can just kind of tap through and have a look at the different hotspots. Let's go to another scene. Scroll around, see how that looks. Okay, and you can see I've got my description down here. I've got my credits that come from each of the different scenes. Looking pretty good. If I want to click on share, I can share it in Expeditions by getting the Expeditions link. That's another lesson. Or if I want to edit, I can edit it. Always click on the little dots, the ellipses, and that kind of thing, because I'm still in editing mode and I can delete it if I want. But I don't really want to do that. I want to still play around a little bit and see how it looks. Now, I copied that link earlier, so I'm just going to paste that in, make sure it works. Yep, and that's looking pretty good. Now, what I want to do, though, is just see that my audio narration had worked. So I'm going to click here, and I believe this one here is audio. Now, I'm not hearing any audio, so what is the deal? Well, I go up to my gear wheel here as the user, and I tap Turn On Narration. So, when you go to a Shinto shrine, you walk underneath a torii gate. You walk on the left or the right, because the middle is... And I'm going to turn the narration off. And if you want to delete your tour, all you have to do is go back to your landing page, mouse over so you get the snowman or the ellipse, and then click Delete Tour. You'll be prompted to delete, and now it's gone. So that is Google VR Tour Creator. Fairly user-friendly tool. Lots you can do with it. Have fun building your tours. And hey, share them with the world. We'd love to see it. And as a bit of an added bonus, for those out there who use Google Expeditions with VR headsets, you can actually turn your VR Tour Creator tour into an expedition where you can view it with VR goggles And the teacher or the student, even better, can use a tablet to lead the class in going through the tour. So how do you do this? Well, while you're in the viewer view, you want to go down here to the share icon. Click on that, and you want to click on Expeditions, right? Now you could copy this and then look for it with the Expeditions library, but now that you've clicked that, you know your tour will be available in your Expeditions library. You're going to need Wi-Fi and other devices to do this, but that's where you can get your link to view it in Google Expeditions. For those of you who may be interested in, hey, I want to take my own 360-degree photos and videos and use them in my tours. Well, for the Google VR Tour Creator part of the webinar that you saw, the majority of, in fact, all of the 360-degree photos that you saw are ones that I took with my camera, the Ricoh Theta 5. Now, my Theta 5 is about 2 years old now. There are newer models. It costs probably about $400 US. You can buy them anywhere around the planet. You can actually buy microphones that can attach to it, and they easily attach to a tripod or a selfie stick or that kind of thing. So they're really fun. Maybe it's something your school can invest in. Take 360 photos of your school and tell stories in 360 about what's happening around your school, or create a 360-degree tour of your school using the Ricoh Theta. They're a lot of fun to play with. They're very easy to use. You will need your Theta. You will need a cell phone or some kind of tablet or iPad. But other than that, that's really all you need. It takes photo, it takes video. The quality is very, very good. Thank you again for joining this Apps Events webinar. I hope that you've got some great ideas for digital storytelling for you and your students using Google Earth projects and Google VR Tour Creator. These are user-friendly, work well with Chromebooks,